Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm Faye.
And I'm James. So I love this time of year. Not only are we slightly losing our marbles, let's see if anyone notices, but loads of people are on holiday. So do you remember, and I'm going back years now, probably a decade, when you worked internationally, everyone went off, the French and Italians and everyone would all go on holiday at the end of July and August.
Yeah, French and Spanish especially, yeah.
At the moment, it feels like everyone's gone on holiday. Now, I'm really happy about that because actually productivity levels are really high because actually we're getting on with some work. But secondly, I'm kind of really upset about it because why aren't I on holiday?
It's the calm before the storm though, isn't it? September's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Well, we've got Cambridge Tech Week at least going on in September, haven't we? So we will definitely be busy. And on that note, I've had some sessions this week planning for Innovation Alley. So obviously we had Chris on last week talking about Cambridge Tech Week and everything that's going on. And Innovation Alley is going to be cracking. I mean, we literally went through who all the different types of companies are. And I think it's going to be really, really strong, certainly in terms of a showcase of startup tech. And not just from Cambridge, you know, people coming from all over places to exhibit, not even just attending. So I thought that was really cool. And I think that's possibly the only non-Cofinitive thing that I've done this week, or it's all I can remember anyway. Definitely. And then the only other thing I did want to say is our friend at Tech East, Tim Robinson, is now back after a period of absence and he's getting loads of love and support from everyone. So we're just going to send him from the podcast a great big virtual hug as well and welcome back. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, well done, Tim. You're a fighter. Tim's put a LinkedIn update if anyone hasn't seen the news and wants to catch up with that. But yeah, that's fantastic news.
What about you?
Well, a mixed week. I'm slowly getting over my anger.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So Monday started off really well. So Fiona Holland from Trinity came over with her team for a little tour. And then I went over to King's to hang out with Kamir Mahadis to talk about the eLab, which was a really good meeting. But then some so-and-so, when I got back to my car, had hit it and driven off without leaving any information. That meeting was quite expensive for me. But I'm getting over it.
It sounds like you're getting over it.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to chilling in the sunshine in Brighton this week, going down there for Pride this weekend. So that'll be fun.
Always something to look forward to. So let's go through some news. We've got quite a few updates this week. So first of all, I think we're over in construction, aren't we?
We are, yeah. Let's kick off there. So, yeah, it seems to be a common news topic these days, isn't it, on the podcast, talking about development and expansion across the city. So there's news this week of 139,000 square feet development starting to bolster the wet lab and office space provision across the city. So that's just across the road from the Science Park, and that's led by Caden's Science Partner. So it's exciting to see the regeneration of older buildings for more fit-for-purpose resources. I think that's the old Taylor Vinters building, if people are familiar with that.
So we've got great news from Anglia Ruskin University. They've been announced as the first UK institution to receive the prestigious Entrepreneurial University Award from the National Centre for Entrepreneurship and Education. The award is a rigorous education scheme that recognises innovative and transformational universities that make a significant impact on their communities and society more generally. So it's real testament to their work. They've been running over recent years the entrepreneurs and alumni communities and also the Arise Innovation Hub. So congratulations to Professor Gary Packham and his team there.
Arm have received some recognition this week. They've been listed in the 93rd spot in the top 100 tech titans listing. No surprises for some of the companies that are featuring there. The usual suspects: Alphabet, Microsoft, Samsung, Amazon, Meta, Apple, etc. So congratulations to Arm for getting that recognition.
And also good news for women health tech pioneer Endomag. Their $310 million sale to Hologic has completed, and the consolidated companies hope to continue to advance the breast health portfolio for women globally.
We got some news from Hertfordshire. Is that a first for the podcast?
I think so.
Ferricin, who are based in Hertfordshire, they're an agri-tech company and they're looking at replacing harmful chemical pesticides with more sustainable alternatives. And they've secured an undisclosed investment from Canadian VC Tallgrass Ventures. So congratulations to them.
Absolutely. And I have to say, just before I do the last piece of news, my typing has been terrible. I'm amazed you've actually got through this news read, because I don't think I've spelt a single word correctly, but there you go. So the final piece of news was actually I had a copy of the Business Leader magazine. And the reason I had it, a hard copy, was Peter Cowley was interviewed in there for his book, Public Success Private Grief, which we've talked about on the podcast. And as I was going through it, there's a feature in there called the Great British Billion Pound Businesses. And the feature is covering all sectors, so not just tech, so it's anything from retail through to builders and everything in between. But there are a couple of Cambridge people in there. So Poppy Gustafson of Darktrace was in there at number 9, and Mark Slack of CMR Surgical at number 19. So it's great because you pick these magazines up and you've got a list of people from Cambridge too.
Yeah, that is good to see. Great. Well, I think that's all the news this week. So let's move on to this week's interview. And joining us this week is Tamzin Lent, who's the founder of startup Where Are You At? And Tamzin has been backed by Cambridge Enterprise. Let's hear more. So Tamzin, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today. Why don't we start by getting to know you a little bit and your background?
Sure. So I studied my undergrad at Oxford. That's where I set up Where You At, to help people find their friends inside busy nightclubs and venues without internet. I then did a year of law school. My link to Cambridge has been when I was studying at Oxford, I met Olivia Lee, who then went on to study at the Judge Business School, and we were very involved in setting up the company together. And so really got introduced to the Cambridge ecosystem via Olivia, and been connected with some amazing people in that route.
So that's interesting in itself. And welcome again to the podcast. Were there any differences in your experience as you'd done, you were part of entrepreneurship both in Oxford and Cambridge? Were there any differences?
Really interesting question. I think we had a lot of support from Cambridge. So Olivia's College Downing, College Cambridge, we won a competition for, and it just felt a bit sort of almost like seamless in my personal experience. But I was also equally whilst at Oxford, I was very inspired by entrepreneurs within the ecosystem too. Like in my college at St. Peter's, I think just the year above me is Grace Beverley, the founder of Tala. And she was extremely inspiring for me. Yeah, I think I'd say the key difference, I mean, it might have just been luck, but it just seemed like sort of easier and to flow a bit more easier in the Cambridge ecosystem. And there was quite a big focus on tech. Both universities have an extremely entrepreneurial, innovative approach to technology, especially. And my experience in both ecosystems has been there's so many students, professors that are just constantly innovating and building really cool things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, when we chatted before, for any, early stage entrepreneurs listening, I guess you've experienced those kind of unplanned complications. As you say, you found your co-founder and things were progressing nicely. But then I believe she took a job in the city. So you then became the sole founder. And, I guess you had to figure out a lot of stuff yourself, and you were doing a lot of things for the first time. What was that like? And how do you cope with those kind of curveballs?
I really believe in the technology. I really believe in it will help people to have more fun at busy events, feel safer, and just that it solves the inconvenience of getting lost in congested spaces. Even when it's felt a bit lonely, has really kept me going. And also retaining really strong relationships with people that have left the business, and within my team itself. I think that's something that's been really important for me, is making sure that everyone has a positive experience of being at Where You At, and something that is really core to my culture.
Do you work remotely from other people in your team?
No, so we actually have a space in Farringdon in London. I think having that in-person community, at least at this very early stage where we're at, is so integral, and feels it keeps the energy really high. and I think is really important. We also started the business during COVID. So that was its own, we sort of saw it as like this opportunity to kind of reset the industry. There'd been so much of a focus around like helping, how to kind of improve these experiences in nighttime venues. The key part of the kind of COVID remoteness learning was like how important it is to be all together as a team and really focused on the same thing with the kind of same mission at core.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in there, actually, Tamzin. So saying it is actually sometimes quite lonely founding your own company and even having a team. But what I would say is there's a massive amount, especially of female founders now that are emerging that all want to, and I'm not talking about mentorship, I'm talking about actually sponsoring and really supporting fellow entrepreneurs. So I'm pretty sure, as a result, even of just people knowing about you on this podcast, you'll definitely expand that reach and know that there are lots of people out there that will support you. I want to move on. You've kind of talked a little bit about what it is that you do, and you've alluded to the technology, which we definitely want to come on to. But I'd actually like to just go back a little bit and explain exactly what it is that Where You At does. And just before we started recording, I loved it when you said it's a Google Maps of indoor spaces. Just tell us about what Where You're At is and what you're hoping to achieve from it.
Where You At it's an app to help people navigate inside busy venues, festivals and events without phone signal or internet necessary. Essentially, it shows a map of a large building or a map of a large festival, and you can see exactly where your friends are. That has applications, whether it's sort of festivals, conferences, large stadium spaces, really anywhere that might be tricky to navigate without it. And basically the core thinking is GPS works really well outdoors. It doesn't work so well indoors. And it also is very difficult to get an up-to-date layout of a site for an event or, an inside of the building. So yeah, we help people navigate it, locate each other and stay connected inside those environments. I've been really driven to build Where You At after I had a particularly bad experience of losing my friends inside a really busy club with no phone signal, and unfortunately being targeted and assaulted. And I really believe that had I had the technology, I would have been able to locate my friends inside that club and send an alert to them, and that they could have come and help me, or I at least would have known where they were. And so I'm really building this with the vision that long term, the technology will help people to wherever they are, whether like they're at a festival or at a rave, they suddenly have that moment where they look around and they're like, oh my God, I don't know where my friends are. That they feel a little bit less vulnerable because they have a tool that can help them to kind of feel empowered to go and find them and stay connected, and that there's this sort of feeling of security that emerges there.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That's obviously very personal, but it shows that, why the company and the, what you're doing has come about. So thank you for sharing that.
I think I'm right in saying that you go into the venue and you install Bluetooth beacons. Is that right? You don't have to rely on the mobile phone signal.
Exactly. So we go in, we install Bluetooth beacons throughout the venue, and we use this mesh system, which basically enables people to share their location with each other within this kind of local ecosystem. And the other part of it is that tool enables kind of data analytics and insights around how people are moving around inside the space, providing operators with like another lens for understanding customer traffic. But yeah, so Bluetooth beacons is a core technology, and we also have a mesh system between phones.
So I guess that implies then you obviously have to strike individual deals for venues or festivals to go in and install the infrastructure. So how does that kind of work on a business development basis?
We're still in progress. So we're still in this sort of trying to find product market fit phase and understanding the best way of rolling out. What we have found is working with venue groups has worked really well. So we've rolled out with DHP Family at Rock City, Stealth and Rescue Rooms in Nottingham. And that sort of angle of working with an umbrella organisation that is really passionate about kind of the future of nightlife technology and helping people stay safer and feel connected inside their venues long term, we anticipate integrating the technology into kind of other festival apps and event app providers and offering it in that way so that we can essentially kind of achieve a high level of penetration. When it comes to the actual installations themselves, at the moment, it is kind of us going around and sending potentially contractors to go and install these little beacons. Going forward, we really hope for it to be completely self-service.
I mean, it seems like such a logical solution. It's so important that we have, safe environments for people and, that you can find people, because as we all know, people they go wandering and do get lost as well. So I think that's really important. Do you have input from the clients that you have worked with so far in the types of benefits that they've seen from it?
Yeah, so very much from the kind of user, like end customer end, the ability to stay longer and staying longer, increased dwell time and increased footfall in those venues. If people kind of lose their friends, they'll just end up going home. But I think what we've more seen a lot of focus on and interest in has been the various ways in which the tool can be used to actually directly communicate and influence on-site behavior. So, for example, an operator sees one bar super busy, another bar is really empty upstairs, then being able to send sort of dynamic area-based, proximity-based notifications to people to direct traffic flow upstairs. And ultimately, that's the goal is really to increase queue efficiency so that we can also be supporting and boosting the venue with their system whilst keeping their punters safe, connected, and having a good time. I guess the story I like to tell is imagine the best sort of nightclub or best festival ever, where everyone feels super, super safe. You kind of know most people, you trust everyone. You don't need to worry about going to the toilet with all your mates because you can walk off and see any artist that you want. And how does that influence your behavior? You actually relax more, let your hair down more. You can go and wander off and see the artist that you want to see.
Yeah, and like James, you just alluded to this earlier on, it opens up then so many other opportunities. I appreciate you at the start of the journey and working out product market fit, but there are so many other use cases that you can probably address too with this.
We have such a data-driven and kind of strong approach to the digital world, and for websites too. We know where customers drop off the website. We know where we're losing people. If something's going wrong, we can kind of complain quite quickly. In the physical world, it's still a lot of human problems. Whether it's on a consumer side, you go to a large event or a large stadium and you're like, God, there's such a massive queue and I want to get a drink. Would you have a better time if you actually had access to a tool that showed you which areas were busy, which areas were less busy, vice versa on the kind of customer venue side of things? As an operator, wouldn't you want to know that people are dropping off or people are leaving at certain times based on certain events?
I've got a bunch of questions, so you'll have to forgive me as I fire them at you. Just on that piece around the data, that's really interesting. I'm kind of thinking, one of my day jobs is running the Bradfield Centre, and I'd love to have that visualization of how people are moving around. So have you built all of those kind of, dashboards and data and visualization tools as part of the product?
We've been building it with a very operator-centric focus to understand, what do they care most about? And it very much started with this dashboard that helps them see where certain ping alerts were going on inside the venues, so that they could kind of make learnings from that and optimize, that there's certain pinch points where customers are feeling specifically unsafe in certain areas, and make changes around that. But then what we've been building sort of in partnership with a number of the venues is actually, how do they understand which artists draw the most footfall and most customer traffic? All sort of anonymized insights, but insights that are really valuable in helping them to kind of optimize their operations, so they can see actually a visualized heat map of how people are moving around on site based on those who have opted in to this tool. Moving forward, we really want to shape it into kind of the most useful tool to help whoever is operating any building or any physical site to really understand and learn from how customers are moving around. So actually moving towards kind of event planning, building this management tool, becoming turning events from an art to a bit of a science where they can really take learnings and move on.
I think the other question I had, and then I'll hand back to Faye, is I think you said you're planning to be able to integrate into other apps as well, which I think is a really smart approach because, obviously lots of people have apps. So, this kind of adoption issue of you pushing out more apps could be a barrier. So I think if you have something like an API or something that makes it really easy for them to integrate your data, that then becomes really powerful, right? For example, like as a family, we use Life 360 to, just for that kind of reassurance and seeing where everyone is. But, to the point in the earlier conversation about network coverage, if you can get that kind of perfect situation where you've got that hybrid coverage because, your beacon technology and your technology is covering you when you don't have coverage, you just get that ideal situation then, don't you, where you've got that constant oversight of what's happening.
Exactly. And I think that's the goal, for it to long term be this kind of 360 solution that means that wherever you are, you have that ability to locate people, even if there's no phone signal.
Yeah, we're just starting the summer holidays pretty much everywhere. And, in my mind, I'm just thinking about all of these people who are in different types of venues that are losing their, kids, friends, family members, etc., vastly more important than bags. Let's put it that way. So I want to go back. You talked about the team earlier on, and you've talked about, obviously, you've got the hardware element, you've got software, you've got app development coming on. How much are you doing it internally with your existing resources? Because I know you've done some research into what you need to do for the technology development, and I believe that you've outsourced some of it and then brought it back, because it's hard, right? You're a startup, you're trying to work out the best, most efficient ways of doing it. How has that been for you?
I've had a whole journey with it, to be really honest. When I first started, I sort of originally did prototypes, and I kind of had a mad week where I don't think I slept for a week, and I was just designing all these prototypes and these wireframes and Figma designs, and then I actually found an agency to help kind of develop an early prototype, so sort of completely outsourced it. Had a number of issues with it. with doing it that way, and then sort of since then it's been a bit of a kind of, my preference has been the in-house route. I've sort of had one or two different agencies that I've worked with following that, and I think that there's a real strength to having people that are sort of long-term invested in the company, and that's the team I've built now, who's our CTO, has a strong background in building these mesh systems essentially, and much more, and having that real hardware expertise, which has enabled us to kind of really level up the mesh to be able to cater to really large scale environments. The rest of the team, like James, has been with me since the beginning. He's our founding engineer and been really responsible for building the operations center. All of our team are sort of deeply connected with the mission and really believe in the kind of long-term vision of what we're building. And I think that's where I've seen the most results, I'd say, is that. But it also it can be really difficult if there's certain clashes. It can be almost a lot more difficult than, when you have an agency, if it's not really working or there's a conflict of, it's easy to sort of just say goodbye and go down a different pathway. Whereas it's a lot more investment from you as a founder and as a team, really, in any kind of new proper hire. So I think it's got its strengths and weaknesses, but I think overall, I'd say in-house would be best. I think in a dream world, I would have met Phil sort of right when I started it. But I think, again, that's another lesson. I think I was actually, when I first started it, there was so much pressure to find the perfect co-founders and team of co-founders, whether it was sort of pitching to competitions or anything. It was very much who are your co-founders, completely understand why it's necessary to have that really that in-house team. But if you have an idea and you just really believe in it and want it to exist in the world, I think you could end up spending years waiting for the right person. For example, in my case, it's probably taken a lot longer than it would had I met the exact right person right at the beginning.
And on a kind of similar thing, I'm really curious to understand what the kind of investor reaction has been as well. I mean, I don't know if you could maybe just give us an understanding of where you are on your fundraising journey. I know another Cambridge connection is Cambridge Enterprise as one of your backers. How receptive have they been to the proposition? And we talked about some of those earlier challenges of being a solo founder and then having to find the right technical support and on all those kinds of things. Have the investors helped with you make connections and that kind of thing?
I've been really grateful for Cambridge Enterprise and Cambridge Angels support, specifically James Thomas, who was sort of the first angel that kind of instigated a lot of this, and they've really helped connect me to like an ecosystem of great founders, great resources that can really help. I think I didn't really understand like the value of the network before this, and I know Faye mentioned earlier about like having that network of like female founders, for example, is really critical. I think like overall, if you're surrounded by people that are like technical founders, people that you can talk to, people that you can ask for advice on, or how do I interview this person? How do I know if they're a good fit? And I think it's absolutely game changing. And I think that's what like the investment from Cambridge Enterprise and Cambridge Angels and just like Cambridge in general has really gifted me, is these like fantastic connections of people I can ring up and say, is this the right what questions should I ask? Is this the right person? One person I'd love to mention is Ramsey Farragher, who like has been like a real mentor to me and kind of just someone who has added so much like value, support, advice since setting this up. And through the kind of Cambridge ecosystem, you find these people who are incredible individuals that are like really looking to help and support other entrepreneurs. I think there's quite a lot of advice of like, don't really mess around and with like networking, etc. And like I totally agree with that. I think it can be really distracting. But I think with like the right funders, they can connect you with the right people, or even just like winning some competitions, like Downing Enterprise winning the Downing competition has been connecting me with Charlie Green, who's been like a personal mentor as well. And I think finding these people who then help and connect and are looking to like build up other people and support other people is so important, of that kind of emotional support as well. If that makes sense.
It does. And it's great to know, we don't have to be connected with everyone. It's just great to know that you've got some good connections that you can trust, and they're there to help you. And like you say, you sometimes go, am I asking a really dumb question here? But quite frankly, if you need to ask the question, you just ask the question, because you can guarantee someone else has been there. So it sounds, Tamzin, like you're going great guns here. You're really starting to build something that has it does have a market fit. It has a purpose. So what are your next steps? What are you looking to achieve in the next 12, 18 months?
We really want to roll out and really penetrate this like a large entertainment venue space. So we're currently in the largest nightclub in Europe, Drumsheds, which is a 15,000 capacity venue. We're running 3 large scale pilots in festivals this summer, and we've invested quite a lot over the last few months in the kind of next level of our mesh technology, much more reliable at scale and for larger scale spaces. So there's about 6 arenas that we're currently in conversation with and looking to implement the technology into. Our kind of main goal is to get extremely high customer satisfaction with these larger scale spaces we're entering, which will then unlock other markets for us, as well as kind of continuing with trying to get into every nightclub in the UK.
That's great to hear. Well, good luck with everything. We'll definitely tag in the people that you've mentioned and given a shout out on the podcast too. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you too.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It will really help others discover the show.